Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our Ask the Experts session on browser user interface. I am Christy Green and a Senior Account Manager with CPI. And also on the call with me is Derek Chen, our Director of CX-Solutions, and Alexis Dwyer, our Senior CX Analyst. Today, what we want to do is provide an overview of browser user interface, and then we'll address your questions. We do want this to be an interactive session, so please use the link at the top of the page, at the top of the screen, to submit any questions that you have. Okay, Derek, did you show that link?
I did.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see it. Okay, first a brief introduction to CPI. We've been in business for 35 years this year, and we started life as a Nortel partner, then transitioned to Avaya. About 20 years ago, we became an interactive intelligence partner and then a Genesis partner after that merger. So we've had a long time focus on the contact center, and in 2011, we added Service Cloud. We are an Oracle Gold partner, meaning that we both sell the solution and implement it. So Derek, Alexis, and I are all part of our Service Cloud team. And with that said, I'll hand this over to Derek.
All right, thank you, Christy. Appreciate the introduction here. So today, I think, as everybody knows, we're going to be talking about browser user interface. And I think one of the bigger challenges of browser user interface, just like any new feature that comes to Oracle Service Cloud, the first question you ask is, why should I use browser user interface? So, what we wanted to do is we wanted to capture a couple of key points that we really felt spoke to not only why you might want to use it, but to really begin to open it up for your organization to see whether or not it is the right tool for you, and I think also more importantly whether or not it's the right time. So the first point that we want to make why you may want to use browser user interface is convenience. So, one of the challenges with Oracle Service Cloud is that in the traditional sense, it always required an installation in a computer, in a Windows-based computer, and it was really refined to essentially a desktop, right? A desktop or a laptop. So you have very limited mobile functionality. Well, with the browser user interface, you're actually now able to access all of your incidents or service requests or cases, however you refer to them. You're able to access all of those things through any browser that you choose. So if you're on an Apple device, you'll actually be able to view that through Safari or Chrome. And even if you're on your mobile device or even on a like a mobile phone, you'd be able to also then be able to see that information. So there is cross-browser functionality, which is definitely a huge improvement over really kind of being refined just to the console. The other thing is that the browser user interface also allows for concurrent logging. So what that means is that it actually allows the same user, so let's say that I'm actually logged into my console, I can also be logged into the browser user interface, and that allows me a lot of flexibility. So, as somebody who might be working and then I need to maybe potentially step away for a meeting, I can step away from my current session at my desktop and then continue whatever I need to look at over my mobile device as I'm walking around, still be logged and still remain logged in on both sides. Whereas before, if two people logged in with the same credentials on two different computers, you'd actually kick yourself out of that previous session. So that's definitely a huge benefit in terms of mobility, portability, and last but not least, there's the flexibility to work on whichever device makes sense for you. In this world of technology, we are finding that we're no longer refined to just one computer. We probably have a computer, some kind of smart device, some kind of mobile tablet. Maybe we even have a desktop and a laptop. And so, with 3, 4, 5 different devices, it's difficult to keep all those things synchronized. Well, with now browser user interface, you no longer need to keep everything installed on every piece of equipment that you have. You just need to have the actual URL or the website that you'll need to go to, and you'll be able to log in, as you need to. So let's go into who can benefit from browser user interface. So as we look at who are the users that might actually benefit from this, we really see this as an opportunity to target certainly the contact center team. If you have a larger contact center team, the requirement to install it into your computer sometimes takes IT resources. Sometimes there are some restrictions in terms of user permissions. And so with all of those requirements, it becomes a little bit cumbersome. But with the browser user interface, as long as they can navigate to that web page, they'll have access to the system. So there is no more downtime, waiting for something to be installed. There's no more downtime as it pertains to a computer can't complete the installation. This will work as long as you are connected to the internet and you're able to actually go to that website. You'll be able to access the browser user interface. So we do have a couple of bullet points here that really point out specifically folks that might not actually be in that typical contact center environment. So, this may be managers of contact centers, right? Because managers are always running around, especially if they have a larger contact center team, it may be tough for them to always be at their computer. Even if they do have a laptop, it may be tough for them to bring that around with them. So now with the flexibility of being able to log in from wherever they are, they can go onto anybody's computer, use their browser, and then log into their session of Service Cloud with their permissions. People like recruiters or maybe even field support, right? It's people that are out and about. They're not in a typical contact center environment. What they may actually see benefit from this is the fact that it's flexible for them, right? So as long as they have an internet connection, they're going to be out and about. They definitely don't reside typically in a contact center environment. So, the benefits for them are huge because now they actually get to see all the details. They can, create those incidents. They can work those incidents. Or in some cases, like for maybe a recruiter, what they'd be able to see is the actual, process of everything that's happening, based off of how it was implemented for them. And last but not least, the non-traditional contact center environment. So we see this typically more with like an escalation team, right? Because even if you have a very, very traditional contact center with a tier one, kind of base level support, inevitably there are going to be some tickets or service requests that need to go to a different audience, an audience of developers, or maybe an audience of second tier support. And that second tier support has additional responsibilities, and they typically don't wear a headset, don't sit in the contact center along with everybody. So if that's the case, then the browser user interface would really be a great fit for that audience, because what it now provides is the ability to get to it anywhere. So as long as they have a web browser, as long as they have internet access, they'll be able to work their tickets or reference whatever materials they'll need, assuming that it is in Oracle Service Cloud. I mentioned a little bit before, Apple users, that certainly is a huge opportunity. For many, many years, Apple users were you were a little bit restricted. If you ever wanted to use Oracle Service Cloud, you had to, use a virtual machine and actually host a session of Windows on your computer in order to install it. You no longer need to do that. So what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to log into the browser user interface, without any virtual machine and use it right away. So that certainly gets you some performance gains in terms of not having to run, the iOS and also the Windows simultaneously. So that's certainly a win. And last but not least, end users who won't want to download the .NET client, right? So as I was kind of talking about in the previous version, before we really started talking about browser user interface, everybody would have to install the .NET client onto the desk, right? So we call that the console. And, for some people, they just don't want to install that, or, maybe it's just not possible. Maybe they don't have permission to do that. And so once again, you'd have to kind of really rope in the IT department or whoever your IT support may be in order to get that to happen. And so with the browser user interface, none of that is necessary. So with that said, we figure it actually would probably be easier to show you guys, a little bit of what it might look like. And so what we can do is we can actually go ahead and show you right here. So let me go to this part right here, and I'm actually going to open up a session of Oracle Service Cloud. So in our instance of Oracle Service Cloud, what we have is we've actually set up a workspace that you guys can kind of see here. The idea is that we're actually trying to kind of showcase really the possibilities of Oracle Service Cloud, and in particular, the browser user interface. So let me go ahead and open this up for you here. Okay, so there we go. All right, so there we are. So here we are with our the Oracle Service Cloud session. So I mean, this is just an example of one of our demo workspaces. We've really tried to keep it very, very streamlined and simple. The one thing that you'll see here is that we have everything kind of in a single column because we actually designed this workspace to really be optimized for a mobile device, maybe something like an iPhone or something like that. But you'll see here we have just pretty basic functionality. We do have, some additional tabs just to show some additional information. Okay, and what we've also included in here is we do have some reports. And so what I want to kind of show you is I want to show you the reports that we've created that once again, that can just kind of show you an idea of what it might look like. This is in no way, shape, or form, as you can imagine, a fancy report, but it at least gives you an idea of what a report might look like, in this console, just so that you have something to compare it to. So let me go ahead now, and I'm going to transition over to the browser user interface. Okay, so within the browser user interface, what we have here is, let me go ahead, click that. So what we have here is we actually have the workspace itself. So that same workspace that you guys saw previously, we have here. Now, in addition to that, and as you can see, everything really renders the same way. Everything functions the same way in that you can select everything that you need. But as you can see, if you kind of take a look here, I'm actually using Chrome in order to display this. We also have the same tabs, the same tab functionality. So here's the audit log that I had shown you guys previously, and all the same functionality. So for the most part, the learning curve is really non-existent, if you can imagine that, for anybody who you're trying to transition over to this particular tool. Now, in addition to this, what we do have is we do have the ability to view reports. So as you kind of create your experience with with the browser user interface, what you're going to find is that there may be reports that people will need on the road. So you have full access to all the reports that have been created. Now, you won't be able to create reports within this tool, but at least you'll be able to view them. So here's that same report that we had. This was our inbox equivalent. And so you could see here we have all the same fields. So, I mean, as you guys can see, everything is pretty much the same. So here's the ticket, here's the report. Okay, so now let me get to kind of the more interesting part of what Oracle Service Cloud Browser User Interface can do for us. And that is, in particular, what this looks like on a mobile device. So let me go ahead and show you guys that now. So you can see here, what I've done is I've actually rendered this in the resolution and size of an iPhone. So that same service request is right here. And you can see that, it actually is pretty legible, right? So we can still complete this ticket in the way that we would need to. If this information was already filled out, we'd still be able to view it. If we take a look at the report, so you can see here, the report is a little bit squished, but certainly with a mobile phone, you can turn it sideways, and then we can now see everything. So what's nice is that this is the same exact report. We're not doing anything special here. So what we can now do is we have the flexibility, as I was just showing you, you can look at this on any device. So let's say that maybe you have a larger mobile device, maybe even let's go to an iPad, right? So if I showed you what this looked like on an iPad, you'll see that it actually changed shape and actually got a little bit larger. So, the larger the device, the larger the screen, the smaller the device, the smaller the screen. So what we have is certainly that same flexibility. And then, we can go here. Same kind of thing. If you rotate the device, it actually will resize itself. So, if that's easier to work on, we can certainly go that route. But we figured this was probably a pretty good at least mini demonstration that will at least give you an idea of what it would look like compared to both sides. And then the last thing I'll show you guys is, well, actually, I've already shown you. I'll kind of go back to, if we actually expand it back out and, this is the regular browser window. So, it's optimized to kind of reshape as whatever way we need it to. All right, so with that said, I do believe that we do have just a few questions that have come through. So let me go ahead and answer these. So let's head back over to here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to answer some of the questions that have come through the question system. So let me go ahead and show this. So first question, is it possible to view reports from the browser user interface? As you saw, the answer is yes. There are some limitations in terms of what the reports are able to do and how they can render, but for the most part, yes, they are exactly the same as what you experience in the console. In terms of styling, there may be some limitations here and there, but certainly to access the data, you can absolutely do that. The next question we have here is, as an administrator, can I easily transition my existing workspaces to a mobile workspace? When we say easily, I think one of the bigger questions is that, well, this is great that you're telling me this, Derek. Do I have to redo everything? So, what it really comes down to is it depends on how you want to hold your workspaces. So for instance, if you have an existing workspace that you've optimized, and typically we always recommend optimizing it for a certain resolution or a certain screen size. Well, certainly mobile phones don't have those types of screen sizes. And so with that said, what you will have to do is you will have to take a look at it. And it's just as simple as assigning that workspace to the browser, and it will say incident browser is essentially what it will look like in the permissions. But once you have it set up, what will happen is that you'll be able to then go ahead and see whether or not it actually functions the way that you want to see it. So I'm not gonna just generically tell you that yes, it's absolutely always going to work under all circumstances. But certainly, it's a starting point. Now, there are some limitations to what does render in the same way, specifically, how some things maybe show and hide, maybe how some things relate to each other. Now, if you guys are on 17D, a lot of those issues have been really reduced. But, for the most part, I would just say give it a try and, experiment, because there's definitely, very little to lose, by just experimenting. All right, here's another question. Are administrative functions available on the BUI? So the quick answer is no. So you will still have to use the console for administrative functions. There are very, very limited administrative functions that you can do through the browser user interface, but I would absolutely say to access tickets, to create tickets, or to maybe reroute tickets, or to work tickets, absolutely you can do that from the browser user interface. And then you certainly have access to things like the Report Explorer to find reports. You just aren't able to create reports from there. So with that, I don't believe we have any other questions. So we'll just give it another couple seconds here to see if there's any other questions. All right, well, I don't see any other questions coming through. So, I appreciate everybody's time, and certainly I appreciate you guys joining us for this Ask the Expert session. So, if you do have any other questions, or if you're interested in finding out more about browser user interface, we actually have a blog that's right here down on the bottom. So, if you go to this link, you'll actually see a video that we've put together for you. Or you can certainly reach out to us. We've put Christy's contact information right here on the screen. So with that, we appreciate everybody joining us, and thank you guys for coming.